Hey guys, I have an announcement. I am currently making plans to change up the show. And don't worry, I'm not going away. I'm not taking a break or anything like that. I just want to shake things up a little bit because I've been doing this podcast the same way for over 2 years. And I want to, keep things fresh, keep myself and you guys on our toes. But that being said, I am currently looking for a co-host for not every episode. I still want to do the interviews how I do them, but like maybe once a month or something like that. I don't know. It depends on who I get as my co-host. But yes, I am looking for a co-host. I think it will be a really fun change mix up that the podcast could use at the moment. For more details, keep your eye out on social media, uh, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. There'll be a bunch more details there. I just want podcast listeners to hear it first. And if you enjoy reading about everything horror, you guys should check out Fangoria, one of the premier brands in horror. Fangoria has been delivering quality magazines since 1979. Each collectible issue features exclusive articles about your favorite monsters, as well as up-and-coming terrors. Be sure to check out the Fangoria store website for subscriptions and a bunch of cool merch. And while you're there, use promo code WoodYouDieShow for 20% off your entire order. That's right, 20% off your entire order. Applies to subscription and one-time orders, applies to the first subscription order only. Now, it's time to go down the steps of the creepy, scary, spooky basement.
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Have you ever felt a knife cut through human flesh and scrape the bone beneath?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Be my victim.
You are all my children now.
Hello, my name is Austin Torres, and welcome to the Would You Die podcast, the show where we talk about our favorite horror monsters and villains. Today, I am joined by the vocalist and the guitarist from the punk rock band Suck Brick Kid, my friends Ian and Grant. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And a big reason why I'm doing great is because while we were setting this episode up, you guys had a great idea. And, you know, Austin's been doing this podcast for a while now, over 100 episodes. Here's a list of movies we like, and we're gonna let Austin pick. And I was like, that was very thoughtful. That was very considerate. And now we get to talk about something that I haven't talked about on the show before, and that is the hit 2022 film Barbarian. I'm so excited to chat about this movie. Before we get into the film, you guys have a album coming out on May 17th called "The End Is What I Want." So, do you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, May 17th, out via Smart Punk Records is our first record, in, I think 4 years, maybe a hair longer. So we're excited about it. We released one single a couple weeks ago. We got another one coming up here, I think next week. Is it next week? I think.
Yeah,
And
April 22nd.
Yep, April 22nd is the next thing, and then the record will be out May 17th. And it was fun to do. It was kind of like a concept, where we took basically bathroom graffiti and we vicariously wrote whatever we thought the person who wrote it on the wall thought. So if they said the end is what I want, okay, that's obviously a dark phrase, but let's write a song about how they were feeling when they wrote this on the wall. So, and it's dumb stuff, we've got a song called Drunk Octopus Wants to Fight, and it's just like a little coat hanger hook, and it's like kind of offset like this, so it looks like a drunken octopus. So we obviously wrote a dumb bar fight song about it. So it basically just it gave us something fun to write about instead of the song about the girl, which I'm cliche that we're kind of too old to continue singing about at this point. It's more likely in our age to be singing about divorces and bankruptcies than prom and getting drunk for the first time. So
I love that concept. That is so good. And I don't think I've ever heard an album quite like that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, but we had a lot of fun making it because it gave us infinite creative, freedom. Because all it is a phrase, and from there we, broke it down. There's actually, this is a horror podcast, so there is one song called "Silence is Golden, but Duct Tape is Silver," and so we do actually have a bunch of horror references in that. I think we reference Human Centipede. I think there's a Silence of the Lambs reference in there. So we basically made that about being kind of taken against your will and held by a serial killer that's probably going to kill you in the end. So the song is basically all about those feelings.
That's awesome. And I know everyone listening to this podcast is they're gonna appreciate those references.
Cool. Good.
How long has Suck Brick Kid been around as a band?
It's almost 10 years now. I think it might be right around 10 years. We put out an EP in 2014, I think.
Yeah.
And from there, kind of reimagined it as an acoustic thing, put that out a couple years later, and then finally a full length. And that full length came out a couple months before COVID. So we kind of got
Mm,
a little bit, handed a bad hand in that, or a bad card at that point. So we got to get the record out and then not really play much at all for probably going on a year plus. And then where we're at in Florida became a little bit more open. So we were able to play around
mhm.
here a little bit, obviously not everywhere. There were certain areas, I don't know about Detroit where you're at or what the policies were at that point, but it was pretty hard to consistently play a lot of shows in a row. It would
Yeah.
be, for a lot of reasons. And then, you play one and then somebody goes down with COVID. So it's like, then you're canceling one, or the town that has it can't do it, or whatever variation. So we kind of got a little bit sidetracked there, and that's why it took us, I don't even know, 4+ years to get this record to the finish line here. But it was written very fast, recorded pretty fast, and then we've kind of been sitting on it for while we get all our ducks in a row to try and put this all back together properly. You know,
Oh, for sure. And congratulations on making it across the finish line
yeah,
and for getting your ducks in a row because stuff like that happens a lot of I feel like not just bands, but any industry or any creative field, when you get dealt shitty hand after shitty hand, it's so easy to just fold and walk away from the table, you know?
no, I mean, and if that's what I like about the people in this band and the band that we all collectively have made is we kind of do it more for for lack of better words, selfish reasons. We play because we just want to hang out with each other and drink beer on the when we get together.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like so it works out for us to not jump ship or kind of give up when the going gets tough, so to speak. Because our
Yeah.
motive isn't necessarily like, oh no, this record didn't go platinum. Well, who the fuck cares? You know what I mean? That's kind of the
Yeah.
that was kind of the model at it. Of course we want people to hear the songs. That'd be cool. But, if you kind of do it with intent of like self creation and, the ability to just kind of be just satisfied with, the concept of playing music, creating music, and then, ultimately obviously putting it in show format and have, doing the best you can with it. I think that is rewarding enough in its concept to keep the project going, and that's why we did this record. And we already started writing for the next record, and we don't really have any intent of not doing that anytime soon. I think this one's a very nasty vitriol record as well. Salt and Taste was very nasty and angsty, and this one is follows suit, but even more angry at this point, I think, in the writing process. So, I think there's a lot to chew on in this record and different facets of we have a song on the top of the record called I Wrote on the Wall, Take That Society. Because everything that, everything that we say at this point we believe is important. It's not.
Mm.
Nothing I'm saying is that important. Nothing most people are saying is that important. And in our little echo chambers of the internet and social media, it's very easy to say, here's my tweet and it must be read and it's taken as the word of God and it's very important. And so this is a whole just rant on, honestly, it's not that important whatever you're saying. So you know yeah.
I dig that for sure. And something that I'm interested in, I mean, you guys will know far more about me since you guys are actually in a punk band, but from what I can tell, punk's been around for years. Like I think punk kind of started in the 60s or 70s,
Somewhere, I
somewhere
mean,
around there. Like I'm thinking of like the Clash and the Ramones, like
yeah,
those early punk bands. And but in my opinion, punk is like music that has to have attitude, and I think punk is a genre that's allowed to be transgressive,
yeah,
allowed to push buttons.
yeah, and that's honestly, that's the only reason I wouldn't play any other genre is because we're allowed to say what we want, whereas anything else, you got to say what people want you to say. So
Right.
I think that's a big deciding factor in the way we write stupid, shit in general. It's, we wouldn't be writing about, I'm trying to not use too many choice lyrics from the first record. We talk about an AIDS or a squirrel giving AIDS to a person, things like that, where it's like, we can't get away with that in country music, I don't think, and you can't get
Right.
away with pop music. And so it allows us, again, that creative freedom that, I think is fun. I don't think there's a point in
Yeah.
doing it otherwise. Sure, we can write regurgitated pop tracks that have no meaning, or, that's fine too. But to me, I think part of that fun is having no restraint on what you want to write about, and even if it's stupid as hell, you know, I think that's cool. And the single we just did or a couple weeks ago, "It's Okay" probably is a view, I guess, at mental illness in a way, but
Hmm.
also kind of a tongue-in-cheek view at it. Not obviously, and no way making fun of any mental illness scenario,
Right.
just kind of looking at it and going, all right, how would this person feel, if they were seeing, hearing voices and seeing voices are telling them to do things, i.e., set a dog on fire and kill their grandmother and all types of weird shit. And we just took a humorous approach to shit that is not humorous at all. If a dude, again, set his dog on fire, it would be very, very horrifying in a lot of
Right.
ways. However, in the delivery and the concept of the record, it's humorous in its format in general. I know it doesn't sound humorous in the way I'm explaining it. Your grandmother, but it is humorous in the format that we went with. And again, that creative freedom is what we liked about it. And obviously, I think horror fans will probably like talking about killing grandmothers and burying them, and and all the visceral things that we can imagine.
Well, that's kind of like a fun relationship, I think, where horror movies and not just punk music, but like rock music, like heavy metal, in addition to punk and like hard rock, there's always been that like relationship. I mean, I think of Black Sabbath, the first heavy metal band, and Paranoid's got a little bit of punk to it. I think War Pigs has a little bit of punk energy as
For sure.
well.
I mean, you
They
look at like
also have the, yeah, go ahead.
Slayer and I
Yeah.
mean, Iron Maiden and any of those bands, like, their art many times more than a lot of the songs in general, and they're all horror based art. Iron Maiden and Slayer, and pretty much all of them played around with crazy illustration, and you're in hell in the Slayer records, and then you've got obviously these crazy different Iron Maiden covers that are all horror themed, in concept, and all of them kind of did that. Every metal band at that point was about horror, and they're still doing it to this
Yeah.
day. There's, not to name a ton of bands, but Ice Nine Kills is big into horror.
Yeah.
Do a lot of collabs and things like that where you see that. So horror and music always has a place, and I think it horror is fun, and that's the
Yeah.
other thing, that punk is fun and metal is fun, thrash is fun. All of those things kind of tie perfectly together. You can't get away with a lot of that descriptive illustration and horror looking artwork in like many other genres of music. It just doesn't work because it's not fun.
Yeah.
Some of the music isn't fun.
And it's like
So
I don't see Taylor Swift having like crosses on fire and like demons
yeah,
doing whatever
you got a
on her
lot of
records anytime soon.
I mean, she's you can't do the same record over and over. So I have a feeling we may get the Taylor Swift metal record next. But
That's
something,
fair. That's
yeah,
fair. She might
you never say
expand.
never. Never say never.
You're right.
Yeah.
When did you guys first kind of like start watching horror movies?
The first horror movie I saw, my uncle, I don't know what year it was. I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and my uncle showed me the original Thing, the Thing, and that was the first horror movie I really saw. And then obviously that was like a gateway drug to me. I saw everything after that, whether it was Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, or you know, another one that really meant a lot was Dawn of the Dead, the original one. I really gravitated towards that. I think it was because when I was growing up, a shopping mall was so just where you went to hang out when you were a teenager, when obviously prior to being capable of buying booze and drugs, etc. So it's kind of like, all right, well, I'll go to the mall and we can find the local, weed dealer there or whatever. So we go to the mall, and that would be, the hangout in your early teen years, or you go to the movie theater that was attached to the mall or whatever. So I think Dawn of the Dead, the second I saw it, I was like, damn, this is like every kid's dream. The mall is closed, and it's just, you can go into every store and you can do whatever you want. So like, yes, while this zombie virus is raging and killing everyone outside of the mall, it's like they were confined to one of the coolest places to be confined to because they had everything at their disposal. And I know that was kind of the point in speaking on like consumer, not to get too deep into the movie, but George Romero is speaking on, our consumer concepts and why we're just consistently obsessed with buying shit for no reason. So I think that
Yeah.
was, a big statement on it. But to a kid at the time, I was like, man, this is so cool. So I think that movie spoke to me a lot. And then obviously seeing everything adjacent to that opened up all the zombie windows to me. And I,
Yeah.
obviously went back and saw Night of the Living Dead and then Day of the Dead. And then every stupid iteration after that, Return of the Living Dead 2 or whatever it was, and 3. The punk one, the really punk one with the girl with the red hair, and all of them had mohawks and shit.
Yeah.
I think it's Return of the Living Dead.
City of the Dead or something like that, I
It's
think.
Return of the Living Dead. I think it wasn't affiliated. It wasn't affiliated to the Living Dead trilogy that George Romero did, but
Right.
yeah.
But
But
I
those
know
are
it.
movies.
I watched that movie in high school. When my friends rented a DVD from Blockbuster and we put it on, and that was a crazy movie. And then I also really something about Dawn of the Dead, the original. And I like the Zack Snyder remake a lot, but like the
Oh,
original,
that's
it's
great.
like the
Yeah, definitely not
there's
taking anything away from the remake. The remake was great, also.
yeah.
That original one is just it came out in the theaters last year again, or maybe it was 2 years ago, and I was like, I have to go, and I went. And honestly, because of the glassed over world that we see now in film and just how
Hmm.
nice everything looks, I can tell you it doesn't hold up like it did when I was a
For sure.
a 10-year-old or whatever. That shit then was like mind-boggling to me. The practical effects, etc., are not gonna wow anybody in this day and age if you haven't seen it already. So it's cool to go back and look at that, especially in a theater, because I never saw it in a theater until it
Yeah.
was out 2 years ago. And it was funny because nobody uses DVDs anymore. I'm not saying you don't, but I don't have anymore. So I
Yeah.
have this massive horror DVD collection, and I don't have anywhere to look at it. And for years, Dawn of the Dead, the original, was not available on any of the streaming services or for download.
Right.
When it came out in the theater again, it was like, no, you got to go see it because it's the first time we're seeing it in a long time, and that was to me really cool. So I love going to anytime there's something like that. We have a local theater near us called Enzion, which is great, and they're constantly showing these old horror movies, especially in October. So I try
Oh
and make it
yeah.
and go see a bunch of that stuff. Definitely into the old stuff. I'm into the new stuff too. I love all of it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the new stuff very soon with Barbarian, but I do got to say about the original Dawn of the Dead, I just love how like red the blood is
Oh yeah, it
because
is
it's
like
so like
red.
it's like out of a nightmare, you know what I mean? Like it's not realistic. And Tom Savini's even said like I believe he said something along the lines of like I hate how that film looks. We didn't get like the red wasn't colored right on the film. In real life, my blood looked great, but something happened in the
Yeah,
processing of the film.
I
And
mean,
I'm like,
in the new versions of it, it's been like, I don't know, remastered or whatever. So the colors are even more vibrant. So that red that you're
oh,
referencing is even like more red. It's like cherry, cherry, cherry red. And it didn't help that many of the skin tones of the zombies in general were like blue in hue or light.
right.
So that red, that bright, bright red on that blue looks even more cartoonish or fake, in the process. as a child, I don't remember it feeling fake. I remember it being like, oh my God, this is real and this is insane. But, going back and watching it, last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, I can't remember when it was released again, it was like, all right, this is not near as good. And when like the zombies turn into flesh and it's like so fake looking, but, again, not taking anything away from Tom Savini, obviously an amazing special effects guy.
Oh yeah. And that's
And
like one of his earlier works too.
yeah,
Like he definitely got, I mean, he was great to begin with, and then he just got better. What made it scarier to me was the fact that it was so like dreamy and like I don't want to say unrealistic because that implies that I think it's bad when I don't. I think it looks great. But like I don't know, I watch a bunch of horror movies, so it's hard to when everything's like great and realistic looking, I'm like, all right, cool. So when it's like that very vibrant, bright red against like that blue, I'm like, that freaks me out.
yeah, 100%. That movie definitely caught my attention big time and really like drove it home for me that I loved horror at that point. And obviously the thing was like, the kick in the ass to just start figuring out how what that world of horror looks like. And I mean, I've always been obsessed with that movie. And, I even the remake again on that was very good as well. It wasn't bad. I don't care what anybody says if they think it's bad or, the original is great. You can't touch it, blah, blah, blah. Fuck all that. I don't care. I want to see these movies remade. I think the Evil Dead Rise was awesome last year or
Oh,
whatever.
I love that one.
And it's like, yeah, the originals are the originals, and Bruce Campbell is Bruce Campbell, and you're never going to take those
Right.
things away. But who doesn't want to see that continue? I want to see more Evil Dead, and I want to see more Dawn of the Deads, and I want to see all. I want to see new Nightmare on Elm Street. Yes, it's
Yeah.
never take away the old one. The old ones are great, but let's see if something can create that type of longevity, even if it's just a few, maybe three of them. That would be great. So
Yeah.
I'm all for those horror stories. And of course, I want to see the news stories. Barbarian is a news story, and all those news
Right.
stories are, that keeps that lineage moving. But let's not forget some of these great characters, in horror in general.
Yeah, and I'm never opposed to a new sequel or a new remake because, like you said, at the end of the day, the original is still there.
Yep,
Like
I was there.
that that doesn't get ruined. It's still the original. And what I like is whenever you get like a new Nightmare or a new Dawn of the Dead or anything, like kids, they see the new one coming out and then they get interested in the old one.
Oh, for sure, 100%. And they'll go back and I mean, that's how I was. If I didn't see something, I saw this remake, and I hadn't seen the original, I'm like, I have to see the original. Or like
Yeah.
occasionally it would be like the sequel is like the fourth one or the third one or whatever. I'm like, well, I need to go watch the second one now so I know what the hell's going on. Not that any of these movies ever really coincide much, especially coming out, but like, you look at what was the one I just watched? I'm trying to think about it. It was like, oh, I just recently watched all the Hellraisers. So
Oh, all of them.
all of them, even the
There's
really
so many.
yes, there's a few towards the tail end that were just like awful, like not
Yeah.
watchable. They got to stop licensing the name type thing, and somebody at least take a little bit better care of it because there is some great ones in this thing, but
Yeah.
there's some dog shit at the end of it. Hulu did their version of it, which is pretty good.
I like
It's
that one.
not, yeah, it's not the original and doesn't have the feeling of that original, which is so
Right.
just dark, but awesome at the same time. But and I don't know why in my head I'm like I need to see them all in order, even though none of these things are directed by the same people. None of them have any or what's the term?
Continuity?
Yeah,
Oh,
continuity,
cohesiveness.
cohesiveness, etc. So I'm like, but what got me started in doing that is I wanted to watch the Hulu one, but I'm like, if I don't see all this bullshit at the end, will I even know what's going on? I'm like, of course I will, but I still want to go back and watch all these terrible movies to make sure I see them, and I do that with all those franchises here and there. Just kind of to remind myself they exist, and it's kind of like watching it for the first time every 10 years when I go back and watch it again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
and
like,
now my memory's probably so shit that I saw Barbarian when it came out in theaters, and I had to go back and rewatch Barbarian, and it was kind of like watching it for the first time. I kind of knew things, but I was like, oh shit, I don't remember that part, or and it kind of So I think rewatching movies every 5 years like that is awesome.
I I'll rewatch a movie like There's a new Omen movie that just came out last weekend, and I loved it. And I saw it Thursday night, opening night. I'm a huge fan of the original, so so I had my tickets to see the Omen as soon as I could. And then I liked it so
I
much,
really
I took a
I said I really want to see it. I have not had the opportunity yet, but it's on my
I
list of things I have to do.
I won't say too much, but I personally loved it so much, I convinced a friend of mine to go see it with me that Sunday. So I saw it twice opening weekend.
That's awesome. That's how I was when I was young. I remember seeing like Event Horizon 3 times in the theater. I saw,
Oh.
I think at the same time, I want to say it was the same year, possibly Alien 3 or Alien Resurrection came out at the same
Mhm.
exact window of time. So I would go one day and watch Event Horizon, the next day watch Alien, I think it was Resurrection. And then I was like back to watch Event Horizon again, and then Alien Resurrection again. And the movie theater was like right behind my house. So I would like always ride my bike up and go watch this, you know, watch whatever movie, whatever horror was out, My dad, I remember the original Dawn of the Dead. I had to convince my dad to take me because I was underage at the time, and he took me to it, and he's like, "What is this fucking garbage?" He sat there and had to watch it, and I was like, I don't think he ever really understood the horror stuff, but I forced him to, my uncle, him, different people to take me if I couldn't get in, or sneak me into a movie theater, etc. Back then, they actually cared about age restrictions. I don't know if they do anymore. I'm not young enough now. I don't get carded at the door, but back then it was that. I Another funny horror story, origin story is my buddy got a hold of a Faces of Death VHS tape, and back then it
Ooh.
was VHS, and
Mhm.
I can't remember what I traded him. I traded him some shitty horror DVD that was terrible, and I got that Faces of Death VHS, and I was like, it was the one. I don't know if you've seen any of those, but it was the one with the monkey in the middle of the table, and they like, it's fake, but it's fake to everybody out there. I don't know. I don't want to, talk about killing a real monkey, but they beat this monkey over the head, and it's like caged in a table, and then they start like eating its brains out of its thing, and like when we first
Uh.
saw this at that time, we were confident all of that was real. Everything on this VHS was real. And it was like the first horrifying, before the internet, before you're able to search
Yeah.
for rotten.com and all of these fucked up sites that were back then. I don't even know if you guys are familiar with some of those things or not, but uh, that was like real death. So this was like, we
Yeah.
thought Faces of Death was like that. And it was like, wow, this is like fringe horror, like way out there horror. But I was like, I need that VHS because I had a ton of horror VHSs, and that was like the one that was like, oh wow, this is like fringe real. So
Mhm.
got that, and shortly thereafter traded that for other horror movies. Back then, VHS trading was like a big thing. It was different because it
Yeah.
wasn't Blockbuster Video was in its heyday. So we would be buying every used VHS, buy one, buy two, get one, or whatever it was way back then. So I had a pretty robust horror collection from like the 90s and into the 80s, stuff like that. And now I have no idea where it's all, probably in a box in the attic somewhere. But at this point, now it's all digital. So I have no use for a lot
Yep.
of these VHSs. But one of the dudes who plays with us in the band, his name is Richie. He's a diehard horror fan too. I wish he could have been here tonight to chat, but he's got probably 400 horror VHS from the 80s and the 70s and the 90s, and they're all in his house, like on rows and racks. And I could probably get a list from him and send over to you. There's some gems that are not available for streaming anymore, or not available anywhere. So he still watches them regularly on VHS, which
Oh, hell yeah.
I think is cool. It's like, somebody listening to a record now is, on vinyl, for instance, it's like kind of still in that era. It's like going back, and maybe you'll see some type of resurgence, but I know rewinding VHSs suck, in general. And we used to have a little like car that you put them in to rewind it. I don't know if you remember those things, but
Yeah, we had one of those.
yeah, and that was the fun part, is putting it in the car and having it rewind. But definitely an annoying process. I think digital is an improvement, obviously.
In some ways it is, but I could go on a whole rant about the pros of physical media collections, whether it be DVD or a VHS or I'm fancy. I like those 4K Blu-rays.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
They look
the problem
mm,
with some of that is I was big into Blu-ray when the technology first came out, and especially because the PlayStation, I think it was one or two or three or whichever one, had a Blu-ray
mhm.
player. I don't remember. So I'm like, right when I got the PlayStation, I'm like, oh shit, I got a Blu-ray player. So I'm like, I got to use the Blu-ray player, obviously. So
Yeah.
at that point, I started buying up Blu-rays, and I got frustrated because a lot of horror movies weren't getting put out on Blu-ray at the time.
Right.
I mean, I almost like I didn't necessarily abandon it, but it was like cool. I'll get like the big, glossy high def movie, i.e., whatever war movie was out at the time or whatever, and it's going to look
Yeah.
great, it's going to sound great or whatever. But I want to see some of these garbage horror films put to Blu-ray, and it's like nobody wants to spend that to convert it or do anything. Now I'm sure there's a lot more. Back then,
They
when it
they
was,
got better. They got better because like I own Alligator on
oh yeah,
4K.
that's cool. Yeah,
And I'm like, I know you'd be a fan of that.
yeah, yeah. I like I remember all the old school shit because again at Blockbuster it was like I lived there, so I rented everything based off
Yep.
the cover. There was no internet really, so it wasn't like you could be like no Rotten Tomatoes. Didn't get a
Mhm.
chance to look at it and review and go, oh, this movie's good, so you go off the cover. Many times I made mistakes. Whereas you get like, damn, they put a lot of money in the cover. Oh man, this movie is so bad. It's like you
Yep.
watch it anyways because you paid what $1 or whatever it was back then.
Right.
You're like you feel obligated to watch it, or my parents paid something. I'm like, I must watch this, to get the value out of it. As if I'm getting any value out of it. I'm losing valuable time doing this. But it would be I get the argument for physical. I have a huge vinyl record collection that
Mhm.
now I'm basically shedding all records other than horror soundtracks. So I've got like actually behind us there's in my like record room I've got an entire area that's just horror soundtracks via great companies like Waxwork and Mondo that license me all,
Yeah.
etc. So I buy up all of those things that I can because to me horror soundtracks, they look cooler. They're going to do better
Yep.
variants. They're going to spend a lot of time into the artwork and all of that. Whereas so many labels now, whether in punk or in metal or rock or whatever, they're like, here's a shitty black disc. There's no sleeve insert. We spent 2 seconds on the art. It's like, all right, at this
Yeah.
point, I'm not. Why do I need to listen to this record on vinyl? I don't. But anything in that soundtrack level, I'll throw on if I'm like working or doing whatever, because it's not so much like driven by words. I can't like focus when there's like, a chorus
Right.
on or whatever. But like soundtracks are easy to like digest that way. And I think horror soundtracks, above all, are so unique because they really run the gamut of like shitty MIDI keyboards to like the Greasy Strangler. If I don't know if you saw that horror movie, but so like I got that on the soundtrack. I'm like, do I need this on a soundtrack? I'm like, yeah, or sorry, on vinyl. I'm like, it's stupid as hell. And when you watch the music, it's like easy and corny, but I'm like, actually, I want to hear this. I need to hear it on vinyl. Do I? No, but I absolutely need it on vinyl because of that horror obsession of like, I've got to have it on vinyl. It's like the recent releases from Waxwork for Rob Zombie's movies, all
Oh.
Free from Hell and Devil's Rejects and
Yeah. How
House of Corpses.
yep.
All those came out in like this crazy box set that I just got recently, and it's like it's awesome. It's got a book in it, and it's like a really great. The artwork is insane. So some of those things, those appeal to me more now on a physical medium than buying a shitload of vinyl. Because if you eventually hear, like my buddy who operates a record store here, he's got a 3-bedroom house, and like 2 of the bedrooms are literally vinyl records. Then it's like,
Mm.
what do I do with all this shit after you have it? It's like you're not going to listen to every record all the time, and
Right.
eventually I was kind of that way with posters too. Like I have a million horror posters and just movie posters and things that are screen prints and numbered, etc. I only have so much wall space. So it's like,
Exactly.
you start realizing you're like, I don't need all this shit and I don't need all these posters. And I don't, but again, that like, oh, I need the new, I just got one. I still buy them anyways, and I don't know why. I just bought a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre one from Mondo that was awesome. And it was like the scarecrow image or whatever sitting on the
Mhm.
stake, and it's all red and like really like guttural looking and nasty. It just gives you
Mhm.
that Texas Chainsaw feeling. Like I just think about the
Yeah.
dude with the little razor, the green shirt, and he's sitting in the van, and the poster gave me that feeling of that guy. Like I was sitting in the van, I'm like, I need this
Yeah.
poster. So I still buy shit like that. I don't know why at all. I shouldn't. You
I
know,
think there's something that us horror fans, it's part of our horror DNA that we just love collecting. I don't know what it is, but like everyone I know who's a horror fan like me, we all have I mean, some are big, some are small, but we all have our horror movie collection, our horror t-shirt collection. I have my fair share of horror Funko Pops and Star Wars Funko Pops. I think if you're into Star Wars, you're into collecting too.
Sure.
But like you're talking about like your horror vinyl records. I have a horror vinyl record collection. It's not very big. I just started it, but like I've like I've Alien and it has like the bright green discs,
Oh, I was
which
gonna
I
say
think
you
are
didn't
pretty
get
cool.
the wet variant, did you? Have you seen that?
I don't
This
think so.
this is like they called it. I believe they called it Xenomorph Blood, but I think it was Mondo at the time that released it.
I
They
know mine's Mondo.
so I believe I have that, and I have a few other copies. But the variant that I'm talking about specifically was a liquid filled record. Basically, it was like bright green or electric green or electric yellow, I guess.
Hmm.
It almost looked like there was like olive oil mixed into this electric green water to create like coagulation or make it material.
Oh,
And the record, I know how this process is done because I talked to one of the guys who does it. And they take a side A clear vinyl and then they take a side B clear vinyl with nothing on side B on the one record and side A on the other record. Then they fuse it together and inject this liquid into the record so it's still playable. It's a little thicker, and inside is this like liquid looking xenomorph blood. And I don't know how many copies of it they did, but it was awesome looking. I wanted it so bad, and obviously I missed out on it. It sold out in like
yeah.
16 seconds, and now it's
Yep.
probably $7 million on, Discogs or whatever you want to find it on. But
Yeah,
I'm
that
sure you,
sounds that sounds right.
you did. Waxwork did one with Friday the 13th, the original one, and it was blood, and it now that record goes for over $1,000 on Discogs. And
Oh, I believe that.
the thing
But
I'm
that
concerned
sounds so
with,
cool.
honestly, is it ever going to dry out? Is it going to leak? Are these are like
Mm,
things that basically
right.
you buy this thing. I don't know how long. It's not like I don't think it's ever been age tested in concept. You know what I mean? So who knows? But I love when they do shit like that, especially with the horror soundtracks. There's just infinite, again, the creative ability to do something different. The Xenomorph Blood one was awesome, and so was the Friday the 13th one. I hope they do more things like that. Because they're just unique. And again, I don't necessarily collect vinyl or horror soundtracks because I absolutely need to listen to it. It's more like I love the art of it. I love the
Yeah.
visual, the variant. I love the creative name of the variant that they tie into, whatever scene in
Yeah,
the movie or whatever. So that's the stuff that really appeals on a horror level to me in the horror soundtracks. And it's
for
just an
sure.
extension of the movie. So it's I just think that's the coolest thing after the fact of seeing the movie is the actual vinyl.
Oh, I 100% feel that. I do gotta say something while we're talking about physical media, something that I think is kind of interesting is Barbarian has not been released at all on any sort of physical media. You
Really?
can only find it streaming. I'm curious as to why that is. I know a lot of people don't buy DVDs anymore, so I do get that part of it. But in my head, I'm always like, the people who I know that still buy DVDs, myself included, are horror fans. Horror fans tend to like to collect stuff. So if
Yeah.
so I'm like, why you have one of the bigger horror movies, you're not gonna do like a little Blu-ray run. You will sell out.
I'm actually really shocked I'm looking too right now. I'm pretty shocked that hasn't. Oh, you know what?
Mhm.
Seeing now, it's not out yet, but I believe Waxwork has the rights to it and is putting it out this year. So it
Okay.
will be. It looks like there will be a Barbarian soundtrack on vinyl here coming up, probably via Waxwork is what it's looking like. I want to say that I saw this before because I have the subscription
Mhm.
to Waxwork. Then I think they tell you the 5 movies. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but I
Yeah.
think Barbarian was part of that drop, but I'm not 100% sure of the subscription drop. But it will still be
Yeah.
available for everyone on whatever date. But I believe it's this year.
That's
But yeah.
interesting. I love that Barbarian's getting its vinyl record before it gets its Blu-ray.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I do think Blu-ray is awesome and technologically superior to streaming it and all of that. I wonder how long that will stay in a physical medium because of how everything's moving to streaming. So they may be deprioritizing that stuff more and more as the future goes. I don't know.
Oh, they definitely are deep. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was gonna say I kind of feel like after just seeing a little bit of that movie, I definitely would not want that menu screen playing throughout the night after I fall asleep. Like, that sounds pretty terrifying, you know.
I I get that. I get that, but like that was a movie that a lot of people really liked when it came out. Barbarian, like my first viewing experience, it was out for a week, I think. And I just went on a random Wednesday night because it was 9 o'clock. I wasn't tired, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'll just go see a random 9 o'clock movie. I hear this Barbarian movie is supposed to be pretty good. All I heard was like, hey, this movie's great. Don't look up anything. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm so glad I didn't because that movie is fucked up.
Dude, 100%, and it's really important not to look up anything in relation to it. It was like again, I don't want to get too much into the movie, so until you want to get into the movie, but
Oh, we're into it. We've been talking for like 40 minutes,
no,
and
okay,
we're just now getting into Barbarian. Um, if you're listening and you haven't seen Barbarian, I highly encourage you to see Barbarian before continuing on with this episode because
yeah,
it's wild.
this is the cutoff, right? This is
Yeah,
before the
this is the cutoff. Yeah.
cutoff. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, the episode is over. So yeah. Otherwise, I don't know why you're listening to a horror podcast. I mean, you definitely got to go watch that before listening on. And I have so many friends that are like, I just tell me what happens in this movie or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell you what happens because it's me telling you X, Y, and Z is not the same as seeing it in the way that it's supposed to be delivered.
Right.
And I don't
Although
get
I
that. I just don't get that. People are like, I want to see this, but I'd rather just tell me what happens before I go see it. I'm like, I'm the opposite. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't want to know anything. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to read about it. I just want, especially movies like that, because I want to be able to
Yeah.
experience it and understand, the twists and the turns and the fun part, about it. You know,
The only thing I want is I want a poster and I want one trailer. I don't want 3 to 4 trailers
no,
and
that's a
constant TV promo. All I
yeah,
need is one trailer just so I can kind of get an idea what the tone of the movie is.
for sure. Trailers are awesome, but definitely don't need to watch 4 trailers of the same movie that show different angles,
Right.
different clips, and the more you have of it, again, what's the point? I want to see it. And,
Exactly.
I hate when a trailer gives too much too, and I've seen a lot of that recently, where it's like,
Mhm.
it's a key moment in the movie, and you're seeing like essentially a death of a main character in a trailer, and I'm like, all right, well, I know this dude dies because I saw this in a trailer, and I'm like, so
Right.
you spend the first hour of the film character developing, and it's like, then all of a sudden this guy's going to die. It kind of takes the wind out of the sails a little bit, and looking at it.
I gotta say, when they did the trailer for Barbarian, they did a really good job because I saw that trailer multiple times just because I like going to the movies. I see a lot of horror movies, and there were a lot of horror movies in 2022. So I saw that Barbarian trailer quite a few times. I had no idea what that movie was. See the movie, and like I rewatched the trailer, and I see like, oh, they're taking stuff from every part of the movie, but they did it in such a way where it's like, if you haven't seen the movie, you have no clue what you're looking at.
Yeah, and even that movie, I'm trying to think because I don't think I knew anything about it, and it definitely got me like totally in the wrong direction coming into that movie. And again, I don't know how far we want to get into spoiler stuff and all that, but the movie sets like, I don't know, maybe the first half an hour or 40 minutes, it totally throws you off into the wrong direction. And
Yeah.
I think that is awesome. I love that so much about this movie. It feeds so much on our basic fears of like all the bad things Airbnb can be. As you're watching it, it's like, you could see that. We've rented Airbnbs for shows and things like that
Mhm.
before, where it's like you could definitely see that scenario happening. Oh, it got double booked or whatever, and it's like watching it was kind of like disturbing in its like process because I'm like, And then of course it angles the what is it? Bill Skarsgård is the
Yeah.
yeah, and he's amazing anyways. Everything he's been in has been great that I have seen.
Yeah.
Just in general, he sets the tone off to where you're looking at it in the wrong perspective, maybe.
Hmm.
But I loved that trickery, and I thought it was perfectly executed in that movie. Even all the way to, again, I don't know where I want to. I don't know how much I don't want to give away too much, but
Right. And it's like, even though we said it's spoilers, it's fine. But we're just like, but we really don't want to spoil it.
it's so good. It's so excellently executed all the way that, like, just again, you can say it was X plus Y equals Z, but that is doesn't do the film justice in my opinion, and it doesn't do. You need those twists and turns to work the right way, in my opinion, but to make the film enjoyable. If you know the twists and turns going into it, I don't know, it's kind of like riding a roller coaster for the 80th time. It's like the first time you ride
Yeah,
it, it's like, oh wow, this was insane. Some insane roller coaster. The 80th time, if you go on it in a row, it's kind of ho hum at that point. You miss you know the the twists and the turns because you already know what they are.
exactly. And like, there's a moment in Barbarian, I want to say it's like the very halfway point. It's a very intense horror scene. And if you guys seen the movie, I think you guys know, and it reveals the monster of the movie for the first time, and it's insane, and it like roars, and then it cuts to black. All of a sudden we're in like sunny bright California, a
Yeah.
brand new character who has not been mentioned at any point prior to this.
Yeah, and I,
It
I love
was,
that in general, and obviously that's Justin Long, right?
yep.
This is, yeah, I mean, I remember being introduced to him. I think it was Jeepers Creepers, the original one.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to that right when I saw him, and obviously he was in a ton of other things since then. But
Oh yeah.
that was that turn, and again, not knowing anything, you're left going, is that the end of the story for the two original characters? And are we on to the next, do we really just spend 45 minutes, or whatever it is for no reason, other
Right.
than, okay, yes, there's something in a basement or something down there, and I'm like, I was kind of like a little bit dumbfounded. We went to the Justin Long scene. And then from there, I get a little bit back on track. And I was like, where is this going? And of course, it ties all together that he,
Yep.
owns property or whatever. So, of course, there's a bunch of, Hollywood jabs of sexual, assault or whatever's going on with,
Right.
him and his career and all that fun stuff. But yeah, moving into that, and obviously it gets so much better from there, for a lot of reasons. And continue. I don't want to. I kind of want to let you lead the spoils instead of me like giving it. You know.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. But that's what I love about hosting this podcast is us horror fans just get so excited. We go on and,
Yeah, it's
but
so easy to
yeah, it
reveal too much,
is. It
for
really
sure.
is. But yeah, I always love that cut because when I first saw that in theater, I was like, what the hell? And like,
And it's like happy music, and it's like
yeah, it's
you're going
complete
from
180.
extreme scene into like you're exactly right. I remember it so vividly. It's like a convertible Mustang or something like
Yeah.
cruising down Southern California. The weather looks nice, and it's just like a typical like California song or whatever that is
Yeah.
playing, happy, bright, etc. song that's playing in the background, and just like you're like, what the hell just happened, But did something happen? Am I in the same movie, or
Right. Did the
did this wheel get
projector
spliced? How did
glitch?
this wheel get spliced wrong? And now I'm watching, Barbie from last,
Yeah.
but
I love that. And like I was referencing earlier how like I thought the trailer did a really good job of showing you bits from throughout the movie, but not really telling you what it's about. Justin Long is in the trailer.
so I haven't watched the trailer. Maybe I did way back, so I have not watched it today or yesterday or recently. So I'm surprised he's in the trailer. I wouldn't even put him in the trailer. I would have made it focused on the beginning parts and then just let all of the rest be a surprise, or vice versa.
What they do so smart in the trailer is they show Justin Long for like 2 seconds, maybe three, like maybe 3 or 4 shots at the most. So he's barely in it. And you don't register it when you're watching the trailer, have not seen the movie. But if you watch the trailer after seeing the movie, it's like, oh, why is he in the why is he in the trailer? But like I said, I saw that trailer multiple times before seeing the movie. I go see the movie. I'm like, Justin Long's in this?
Yeah, especially the way it begins. You're just watching it like I'm sure it would be misleading as the movie is inherently misleading in its own.
Yep.
You know, that's
I did like that like halfway point, like the switch up completely of the just the way it feels and everything is.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. Yeah, it was cool.
I just love how expertly the film navigates those tonal changes. Like,
oh sure. Yeah, I mean all the way through. I mean it's yeah, any of the like impact moments or any of the moments of, violence, I guess, are so just like in your face aggressive that
yeah.
it kind of just it shocks you every single time, especially I don't even know what we want to call the main the barbarian, I guess, or whatever, but
I I
you know,
think I think she's referred to as the mother.
that's what I probably would perceive, based off of the there's some references of breastfeeding and stuff throughout the movie that,
Yeah,
if you're anyone
there's a
that's
very
for
famous
you.
scene with the milk bottle.
Yeah, there's a scene or two in there that, are a little uncomfortable to watch, but that's what makes horror good, making you
Yeah.
squirm a little bit.
Speaking of squirming, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm so tough. I don't squirm during horror movies. But I do have to I do host a horror podcast. I do make horror movies. It is a little harder to make me squirm than it was 10 years ago.
For
Like
sure. You've been desensitized. You know what I mean? It's you've
yeah.
seen you've seen too much, you know?
Exactly. And like because
Not
I
enough.
do this podcast and because I make my short films, I know how the sausage is made, you know?
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll go see a good horror movie. I'm not scared. I'm more like, how did they do that? Or
Yeah.
that shot they got's really cool. Barbarian, I was squirming.
Yeah, for sure.
I was
Especially when
tense.
yeah, I was kind of sweating a little bit watching it, just like, oh my God. And again, there's twists and turns in it that there's just a lot of moments in that movie where you're like, it emotionally grabs you and twists you in some way. But
Yeah.
towards the end of the movie, there's not giving too much, but it makes you kind of pissed off at a character. You look at that and it's like throughout it, you're kind of rooting for him in spots, but then I just love how that mind fuck kind of works, where it's like, hey, we're gonna make you feel a certain way, and then I remember watching an interview with I think it's Greg Nicotero who does The Walking Dead,
Yeah, Greg and
and,
Nicotero.
and the question that was asked was why are it was after her I mean this is way back, so if it's a spoiler, I don't care, at this point, but they cut Herschel's head off in this
Oh yeah.
scene, and it was right after that episode that they interview him, and he goes, the question from what's his name, the dude who used to do the after the thing,
Oh,
Chris,
Chris Hardwick.
yeah, Chris Hardwick asked him. He goes, why are the deaths so violent? And his answer was, well, we've done such a long job of like character development, making you love this character, making you sympathize with him, etc. We want to be so brutal that it affects you in an emotional way. And that was why, that was the answer as to why the brutality of the death, because they want to grab you and basically say, you loved this character, i.e., look at Glenn,
Yeah.
and so those scenes are so like brutal, but it's because they wanted you to like lose that attachment in a violent manner, and that's, I think that's really cool. One of the cooler ways that they kind of approach it. They could have killed him in a million ways, or he could have been killed off camera, but they made it. They wanted you to see it happen, not just like 2 swats. Let's make it 5. The overkill
Right.
concept of, and some of that's on display in Barbarian for sure, in a couple moments. But
And I think something that a lot of horror movies do, and the way you kind of talking about with The Walking Dead, I can't think of any Walking Dead examples, but when you have a despicable character, you want them to die the most
Oh
gruesome way.
yeah,
I'm thinking about a certain character in Barbarian where they do that kind of near the end. But also we were talking about like the George Romero movies earlier. Day of the Dead, when that colonel's getting ripped apart by the
yeah,
zombies, and he's
yeah,
like, choke on them, choke on them.
yeah. No, that was great, and of course, that those are the moments you cheer for. You know, you're like, finally,
Yeah.
was dying. You know, and it's like saying that in like any other format. You know, I hope we're sitting on the patio here. I hope my neighbors are hearing us talk about like finally that guy is dying. You know, and it's like God, what's wrong with these fucking people next door? But you know, I think that Negan in the scene with Glenn for sure.
Mm.
I was pissed afterward. I'm like,
Oh,
you know,
everyone,
yeah, this dude,
everyone was.
yeah, and
I'm,
of course he survives for like 10,000 more seasons. I think I gave up
yep.
on the show. I think he's probably still in it, but you know, I gave up on the show long before the, you know, not because it was bad or anything. I think I lost interest. I'm also,
Yeah, it was a long show.
yeah, you know,
But like in Barbarian, I'm gonna be careful because like I know we said it's spoilers, but I just don't feel comfortable spoiling Barbarian to someone who hasn't seen it. I
no,
know
I
we
think,
gave the warnings, but Barbarian's truly it's I think it's because it's a year and a half old. If Barbarian was a little older, I'd be like, you had 5 years. But
yeah,
no, it's still kind of recent. People have
this is
lives.
yeah, if this is a 90s film or anything,
Yeah,
we'd be fully disclosing the detail. But I think the amazingness of Barbarian is in the twists and the turns, and when they are
exactly.
revealed, it again it takes the the wind out of the sails. It's not. I don't see the point in watching that movie. Of course, it's great, but
Right.
I don't like knowing the story. I want to be surprised. I want the film to have its intended purpose for you to go see it that way. You know what I mean?
But I gotta say about Barbarian, in terms of like despicable characters, having a death, there's a character in Barbarian, and if you've seen it, you know who I'm talking about immediately. But they like introduce this character as a bad dude, and then throughout the movie, they try to warm you up to him, and they cast a
Likeable character.
well-liked
Yep.
a well-liked actor as his character, and then it's like, oh, maybe he's not that bad. Oh, maybe he's. And then like you think he has this breakthrough moment, and he says literally, like, I think verbatim, he says, "Am I a good person who did a bad thing, or am I just like a bad person who's trying to be good now?"
Yeah.
And then at the end, he just double crosses our lead. It's just like, yeah, I'm gonna push you off this whatever
Yeah.
and
Well,
I'm
yeah.
gonna fuck you over. It's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah. There we
dude.
go. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say too much.
I know. I'm trying to dance around.
Yeah,
If you know,
I
you
mean, I
know.
think there were repercussions. Let's leave it at that. I think
Yes.
there were repercussions for being a bad person. We don't always get those in real life. You know, sometimes we get them in the movies, and that, there was definitely repercussions for the betrayal. You know,
And it's one of the most satisfying and gnarly, grossest deaths I've seen in the past few years.
I loved it.
I don't
Again, you're rooting at that point. Everyone's
exact
happy about it, so it's when everybody on
exactly.
the team rooting for a death, it feels a lot better. Than
Yeah.
you know
And it's
decision.
just like the Colonel in Day of the Dead are I don't know if everyone's gonna agree with me on this, but Quint in Jaws.
Oh, dude.
Quint's not like a bad dude, but he's an asshole, and you kind of want him to have the best death in the movie.
Yeah, I think I liked him. That's the problem.
I
It's like,
do. Well, sometimes we like assholes.
yeah, of course. I mean, I'm trying to think of some now. There's so many horror movies that are designed around the main character or the lead being an ass, and you still like it and you kind of root for it, throughout the process. I think it's just how it's filmed and what's put in front of you and how it's presented. I mean, look at
Yeah.
he wasn't an asshole, but I love the concept of rooting for the killer. And when you look at like a TV show like Dexter, I know maybe not the most popular thing in horror, but the idea, the concept of a serial killer who is a good serial killer who only kills bad
Worse serial
bull. Yeah,
killers.
worse serial killers. So you're still rooting for a serial killer that, so, you can make bad things look good, just depending on
Yeah.
perspective.
So
So
where would you place Scream? Like, because I feel like I was rooting for that villain.
like in the OG original or
Any of them.
they're all
You're
I
always
don't
rooting for Ghostface?
yeah, he's always rooting for the Ghostface dude. Honestly, none of those characters are likable though. For at least me, I don't think any of the characters in any of the Screams that I have seen, I've done like, no, I want this person to survive. I'm like, at which point do I just want the whole cast killed off and then, the Ghostface walks off into the sunset? I would have been fine with that ending in all of them.
Well, it's kind of like
Yeah.
Like who wants to kill it? Like they want to see what crazy.
Well, yeah, you never want them. It's just like any of those horror villains, whether
Yeah.
Michael Myers, you don't really want him to die. You don't want,
Right.
and
And
of course he doesn't. He never has. He just keeps
yeah,
coming back. So
same with Jason. And like they kill Freddy in every movie, and Freddy comes back the next movie.
that one's the only justifiable one to me. I'm like, of course he's in your dreams. He's gonna consider. He's gonna just keep
Yeah,
coming back.
that's fair. He's literally a dream demon. Like, you can't kill him. You can only set him back.
Yeah, the rest of them were kind of like, all right, the dude's dead, man. He's been set on fire or melted or whatever variation that of death
Right.
happened. All of a sudden, we get another movie. Anyways, it's like, I'm still for it. Remember, I want to keep
Yeah.
seeing these characters forever, but maybe again, you need the new reimagining of,
Right.
again, like a Nightmare on Elm Street would be. I actually read something that they were thinking about casting Bill Skarsgård as Freddy Krueger, which was kind of interesting. But again, I think there's more actors out there in the world, and I'd like to
Yeah.
see, maybe spread the wealth a little bit. I think he's got his as Pennywise,
Yeah,
but
I think Pennywise and Freddy Krueger are a little too similar in terms of
yeah,
characters.
yeah, 100%. And that's why I'm like, I get that he's capable. He's 100%
Oh, he
capable.
definitely is. He was Pennywise. He could obviously do Freddy, but like I agree. Like I think that's too similar. Now, if you cast him as like maybe John Saxon's character playing Nancy
Great.
Thompson's dad.
Yeah, he would be awesome as that. Again, you could place that guy in almost anything, and he's going to be great. But
Yeah.
And coming out of this again, Barbarian, he does such a phenomenal job at just delivery of making you uneasy enough to not
Right.
trust the character, and that's that's one of the big components of Barbarian that makes it, I think, so great. Is just that again, the twists and the turns that are all involved in it.
Exactly. And like I do have to say, no, I'm not gonna say it because it's a spoiler. I don't want to spoil
this concept is a lot harder than I thought it would be without
I know. I
much.
didn't think we'd be like, because at first I just thought we would just say whatever, and who hasn't seen the movie, oh well. But I'm like, I can't do it. I can't in good conscience do that.
You have a moral obligation not to. It's unethical not to give.
Yeah, I have a moral obligation. If you have not seen Barbarian, I hope we sold you guys listening on it. Check out Barbarian. It's so gnarly. It's so cool. All the cool kids are watching Barbarian. Peer pressure.
Peer pressure. All the cool kids. Honestly, the most tragic part about this is that Barbarian was on the HBO, whatever it's called, Max or whatever it is now. It was streaming on that for like probably a year. And it literally just went off of it, I feel like, a week or two ago. Now it's currently only available on iTunes or whatever it's called.
Of course.
Maybe on Amazon also. I'm assuming you could rent it. But definitely watch it. To anybody listening, I think if you're into horror and seeing a unique and really well put together newer movie, newer 2 years ago is still new.
Oh, definitely.
I think it's a really good work of art in that way. And, for the people looking for the soundtrack, I'm thinking Waxwork is doing it soon. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an exciting film that to come out in the past few years. And I love new original horror. And don't get me wrong, give me new Michael Myers and give me new Omens and give me new Aliens all day.
100%.
But also give me the original stories. I support those too.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I said in the beginning, I want to see
yeah,
these characters forever, but I also want to see the new creations.
you want to see the new characters.
Yeah, the new
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, there, a lot of what we love so much in horror was derived in the 80s, etc. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of creative people in this world, and we can easily create more characters like Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers and
Right.
Jason Voorhees. And where's the new ones? What is the new franchise concepts that are out there? And of course, there's a ton of things like that out there that are starting and new. You look at
Yeah.
obviously it or you kind of have a new villain there with the new Pennywise, and
Right.
there's things like that that are out there. I mean, you look again referencing the Rob Zombie movies; that was a trilogy of sorts.
Oh, Captain
You know?
Spaulding and
Yep.
Otis and Baby.
And Captain
They
Spawn
were new
is such an
characters.
awesome character, and it's obviously sucks on the third one to see the end of that,
Yeah.
But again, then you're introduced to Richard Brake, who's also in
And
Barbarian.
Yep. Yep.
And he's
I
a
was about to say, like, there's another Barbarian connection.
yeah, and he is a fucking menace in
Oh,
Three from Hell. And if you haven't seen Three from Hell, watch that too. I think that was on one of these streaming services. I just watched it
I,
recently again.
yeah. Richard Brake is so good because
Yeah,
he's in Mandy. He was in something I watched recently. It was me and my
a
friend
lot
are
of
like, is that
he's in a lot
Richard
of
Brake? Yeah.
smaller horror movies that you wouldn't think he's in. Like I put on something on Shutter the other night, and he was in that, and I was like, oh, weird. This dude's in like this is a very low budget horror movie that like just came out, and I'm like, not that Richard Brake is above anything else, but he's been in some bigger name films recently,
Yeah.
So I figured he'd be like trying to parlay those into some other bigger name films, but
I
sure
think he
enough,
just likes working in horror movies.
yeah, and clearly he's pretty
Yeah.
good at it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
he's
like
great.
for sure. And so, Sid Haig and was
Yeah.
obviously perfect as Captain Spaulding. I don't know if there could ever be another character as good as he was as Captain Spaulding with his delivery and all of that.
Right.
Including Bill Moseley and Devil's Rejects was painful, to watch in general at moments because he was just a menace, and he's
Yeah.
that great. And he goes all the way back to, I think the first movie I saw him in was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I think
Oh,
was
yeah, yeah. Chop top.
yeah, Chop Top was the first, introduction to that. All those characters are great.
I think we're making newer ones. It's just which ones are going to get the sequel to really cement themselves. And right now it's Art the Clown of Terrifier.
Oh, absolutely. I forgot about that one. That's a
He
perfect one for New Age.
I I think he's like the big thing of the current generation. This guy's a little bit older, but I'm a fan. Victor Crowley from the Hatchet movies.
Oh yeah, great, amazing.
That's
Oh,
more like the 2000s,
a
but
little bit earlier. I don't know if they're still making those. Is there new hatchets coming? I don't know
there
anything
was
about it.
one in 27 Victor Crowley in 2017. That was the most recent one. That's probably the last one. I don't know if they're going to make another one,
I love
but
the dude from Wolf Creek was awesome. If you ever saw that,
oh, I've
Mick
only seen that movie once when I was
Mick something. Mick,
yeah, Mick.
I don't remember his last name. I
That
can't
dude's
remember.
messed up.
Yeah, but that's what we want our horror villains to be. I mean, it's
Exactly. I think the little girl from Orphan is kind of starting to become the character because she just had a sequel and people are loving her. Have you seen X?
Oh, X, yes, and the sequel,
Pearl,
Pearl, yes, I saw both
Maxine's
those.
coming out this year. So that's Pearl and Maxine. Those are new
Yep, great
characters.
characters. Let's see how it perpetuates. I mean, will we get
Exactly.
8 of them? I don't know, but if we get 3 of them, that's a good place to be. Yeah.
I think we're in a great place where, yes, we can get our new Predator and Alien and Michael Myers and Omen. There's a new Omen movie. But
Yep.
also, I like that there's new original movies like Barbarian and Talk to Me. And then there's also new franchises forming like Terrifier. And then Orphans getting a sequel. They're making another Smile.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that was awesome. That was a fun one, a newer one. What's crazy about Terrifier is how brutal it is
Mhm.
and how much general public knowledge is being poured on it. That would be a movie that normally wouldn't be made for the movie theater. Do you know what I mean? In my head,
Right.
I remember going to see the second one in the theater, and I was like, damn, this is brutal. There's a couple scenes in
Yeah.
that are just like, and I've read some interviews about this new one coming, and they're like, oh yeah, whatever that was kids play. We're gonna really take it over the top. And I'm like, holy shit, this thing's gonna be a wide release to like everybody, because to me that's about as violent as it gets as a horror
Yeah.
movie goes. And to see it in a theater is crazy, and to see it adopted by the masses and not just like there's just a niche of horror. I think that's
Yeah.
really cool, and I think that speaks for the direction horror can go, so that maybe some of these massive studios don't need to sugarcoat it so much or gloss it over and make regurgitated just generic stuff, and they can get a little bit more risky with it after
Yeah.
seeing the success of Terrifier. And I think that's awesome. The crazier these horror movies get, the better to me.
Exactly.
And I think that did a really good job at pushing the envelope on a big way.
Oh, I agree. And I think Terrifier 2 coming out around the same time as Barbarian, which those are two crazy movies.
Yeah, that was a good time in horror for sure. I mean,
oh yeah,
I'm hoping for scenarios like that. And I love going to the theaters as well. I mean, it's rare I get to go as much anymore, but I typically try and go to the bigger horror movies that are being released. So I'm excited to see what's coming this year. I know there's a ton of things. I have this little, like, I think Shudder may have posted it, or somebody on Twitter. It was like, all of these are coming to theaters this year, and it was like there had to be like 30 horror movies, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be crazy. So I think
we're living in a great time as horror fans.
For sure.
Alrighty, this conversation has been so much fun. I could keep going, but it's completely dark where you guys are at. And I'm like, okay, I should probably stop gabbing, let you guys live your lives. Where can everyone listening find you? And talk about the album coming out on May 17th.
It's on all the streaming services: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Amazon Prime, or whatever services you got, it's probably on it. It's on YouTube. We have one video up there, plus videos from our previous record, and then we're dropping a new single next week, or 2 weeks, and then record comes out May 17th via Smart Punk Records. We're hyper excited for it. It's definitely, I think horror fans will enjoy it. Because of its stupidness and grotesque nature. There's references of cutting off dicks and all types of stuff all throughout it. So I think it'll find a nice home in the horror scene. In general, we're not a horror band per se, but I think it's got enough collective approach that horror fans will enjoy the record, just the lyrical content, etc., things like that. Happy about it. We're excited. May 17th.
Hell yeah, guys. I'm excited too. I can't wait for that album to drop. And everyone listening, listen to that as well. Thank you guys so much for joining the show.
Appreciate it. Big time. This is a privilege to be able to talk horror for a little bit. Not many of my friends watch too much horror, so I kind of keep it all inside. So now I'm like, oh, let me just
exactly
really download my entire childhood onto this entire format. But so I appreciate the outlet.
Oh, no problem at all. That's why I love doing this show.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Thank you so much, Ian and Grant, for joining me today. Definitely, you guys want to check out their album, The End Is What I Want. Coming to you guys May 17th, wherever you guys listen to your music. The Patreon is back. That's right. If you really want to support this podcast, you can help me directly by subscribing to the Patreon. I retooled it so it is only $3 a month, and you'll get exclusive content, movie reviews, and live streams for patrons only. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Would You Die YouTube channel. You can watch video versions of the podcast episodes every Thursday, my short film Ice Cream, and more to come. If you like this show, please let me know. Leave a review and rate on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to the show. Also, feel free to interact with me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're most comfortable. It may not seem like a lot, but trust me, every single like, share, comment, follow, it really helps this podcast grow and helps me keep going, keep doing what I'm doing. And feel free to let me know how I'm doing. What do you guys like about the show? Areas I can improve? Guests you'd like me to have on? Monsters you want me to talk about? Let me know what you guys think. A reminder, I just became an affiliate for FANGORIA, one of the premier brands in horror. I definitely recommend checking out their magazine and even subscribing. And if you decide to do that, don't forget to use the promo code Would You Die Show for 20% off your entire order. You can find the show's social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Would You Die Show. Also now you can follow me on TikTok at Would You Die Podcast. Would You Die is a partner with the Three Wise Men Media, a Metro Detroit-based group of awesome guys, Kyle, Tyler, and Dylan, where they bring you professional wrestling, indie comic books, and so much more. The music you hear in the beginning and end of each episode is composed by my friend Josie Palmer. Next week, you'll want to say your prayers because we are taking a deep dive into religious horror. Until next time, I'm Austin Torres. Try not to die.